And we're talking to the guy interviewing him, and he said, did you know that behind the bulletproof glass, there is argon, but with a little bit of oxygen? And do you know what the oxygen's for? I'm like, what? The shroud has microscopic bacteria on the surface of it that protects it. So they have to put a little bit of oxygen.
It needs the oxygen.
So they don't die. And I was like, so you're telling me the shroud has a force field?
Hello, BeatiDudes worldwide. Welcome back to another fun bonus edition of the BeatiDudes, a podcast where Christian men come together to learn from each other, with each other, to walk to eternity through fraternity. My name is Paul Kolker, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jeff Scheffelbein.
I feel like the crowd is right here with us at Lucid Private Office Tiny Table.
Good plug. And Nick Besner.
Yeah, the crowds are just coming in. It's like getting out of a car and seeing a police escort.
They're being lowered in through the roof. Here we go. And we're back for a bonus episode with none other than Matthew Marsden, Hollywood celebrity, super faithful guy. He's going to tell us, though, he's kind of changed course a little bit over the last few years, and so he's going to tell us what he's done production-wise, specifically with the Shroud of Turin, which we have a great episode on that. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch the Shroud of Turin
It's my favorite shroud.
Name 3 more that you know of.
Okay, the shroud at the end of the Mario Brothers game.
Dang it. Okay.
Yeah.
No, all right, we're good. All right, well, welcome back, Matthew Marsden.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you didn't ask me to name another shroud.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't even know if what I said was accurate.
I'm all shrouded out.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have no shroud of a doubt that this is going to be an amazing show.
Well played.
And I have, thank you, Matthew.
Hey, shout out to Jeff.
Shrouded out. I thought after the last show, too, when you're done with this, maybe you could turn on the lights for us. We could have a big ceremony and have everybody from the office come and watch you.
Yeah, like at least 10 people will turn up.
Every morning at Lucid, that's what we should do.
I'll be coming in. I'll be like, thank you. Thank you, Lucid.
I'll be here for 6 hours.
Yeah, I'll be here. Yeah.
All right, I digress. The
No,
shroud.
yes.
The shroud. All right,
Yes.
so I guess I have to give a little bit of background on this.
That'd be great.
So many years ago in Hollywood, a gentleman by the name of Jack Sacco was doing a presentation on the Shroud of Turin. And of course, like most people, I'd heard of the Shroud of Turin. I didn't really know anything about it. I'd heard, like most people, it was a fake, fake shroud. It's fake shroud news. It's a fake shroud. And I was intrigued. I went to watch him do this. And a little bit of background on Jack. He's a engineer. Went to Notre Dame. Won't hold that against him.
That's right.
When it was Catholic. He, very, very smart guy, wrote a Pulitzer-nominated book called Where the Birds Never Sing. Go get it. It's amazing. Seriously, his dad was at all. He was like the real Forrest Gump. He was at all the major battles in World War II, including he goes in and liberates Dachau. It's unbelievable. So anyway, he does this thing about the shroud, which, as you know, you've done a podcast about it before, but it talks about the length of it, that it's the right length for a shroud, that it was a linen, done on a linen loom. I'll just go through it quickly, that there was pollen in it from a specific plant in Jerusalem in the 1st century. There's all these other amazing qualities. I believe it was woven by a left-handed woman because there's a Z curve rather than an S curve. Then you look at the image. The image is non-directional. The image is there's no image underneath the blood. You can see that there's been multiple different lacerations up and down the back of the legs, and there are these little barbells that went in that they whipped him with. That the blood has an elevated bilirubin count, which means that there was stress. It cannot be seen closer than 6 feet, and I can testify to that because I've seen it. Right. So when you get close to 6 feet, it's a real photo negative. It's anatomically correct. There's all these things. It's non-directional, which means that if you tried to paint it, you'd see a direction of a brush. It's non-directional. It has all these amazing qualities. I just wanted to give a little bit of outline on it.
Yeah.
Some of that I hadn't heard before. That's
Oh,
very
really?
helpful. Yeah, I mean, some of the
Yeah. It's crazy.
detail of
The
that. I
Andrew
mean, there's
Dalton
just so
stuff.
much to this.
I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind.
All right.
So the image on the shroud, I don't know if you know this, is only a few fibrils deep. Do you know about this?
I do.
So, yeah, if you say my arm is a fiber, then these are the fibrils. So before 1998, there was a backcloth sewn onto the shroud, which was done by nuns when it was in a fire. The silver box that it was in burnt down, so that's where you see the burns on either side of the shroud. And so the nuns sewed this black cloth on it, so that it would keep its integrity, right? Well, they knew that the image is on the top fibrils, not all the way through. So if I got this water and I poured it onto some fabric, then it would saturate the fabric, right? This doesn't do it. The image is just it's only a few microns deep. So they're like, how did it get on there? Well, it was burned on there. And so how could it be burned on there? So Jack came up with this theory, which is unbelievable. In the 1980s, they discovered the Higgs boson particle, right? Which I think it's every one of every 1,000 bosons have you heard this theory?
Nope.
Okay, so one of every 1,000 bosons actually goes towards a higher state of being, as it were. It doesn't follow the second law of thermodynamics. This is what Jack told me, so I'm just regurgitating what Jack said. So that boson can be outside of time and space. Okay, so they've seen the same boson in two places at the same time, not split the same boson in two places at the same time. So he thought, well, what if every boson in the body, every cell in the body, or every molecule, whatever it's quantum, right? Quantum particle became all bosons that don't follow the second law of thermodynamics. Well, he figured out that if it was a chain reaction, that it would take about 72 hours, that it would start with a high-pitched like whine, like we couldn't hear it, like dogs could hear it, and then it would get lower and lower and lower till eventually it would shake, and it would be like thunder. Right, it'd be like a rumbling. The air would fluoresce. And one of the most interesting things is the shroud, anything on top of it would fall through the body. And where it connected with the air, it would scorch it, which would explain why there's a scorch on the top. But he didn't know whether there was a scorch on the bottom. And he needed to wait. And then in 1998, they took the back cloth off. And there was a scorch on the bottom. Now, here's why it's interesting. The body could then take on the properties of a boson, which it could be outside of time and space, which means it could pass through things.
Like the upper room.
Yeah. It could be, like I said, in multiple places at the same time, and it could manifest itself in bread and wine. Didn't expect that one, did you, folks? So it basically explains the real presence scientifically. Not that you need that, but it does explain it. The theory is there for that. So anyway, that was Jack's hypothesis. So I had to kind of give you guys, you can debate it. I'm not a shroud expert. I'm just telling you what I was told.
I believe you.
So
I need to talk to Jack on the show. So make that happen.
No, you do need to talk to Jack. So when I say when they consecrate the Eucharist, boom, that's the moment of the resurrection right there.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
So anyway, it changes the way that you look at the Eucharist. It changes the way that you think about the shroud. So anyways, I had heard this and I said, Jack, the world needs to know this. Cut long story short, we were going to go and work on another project, and we got an investor, and they said, listen, Jack did his shroud presentation, and they said, why don't you do a documentary on the shroud? And Jack was like, I've been trying to do one for 20 years.
Yeah.
But, as I said before, Catholics don't fund this kind of stuff. It's weird. And by the way, the other thing about the shroud is, I just want to put this out there, it's a photo negative, right? So even if it was a fake, that means that, and it came from the 1500s, that someone would have to go back and explain how photography was invented in the 1500s. So you can figure out which one you want to believe, right? Because you'd have to figure that out.
The fake is impossible too.
You couldn't do it. And then knowing that you are closer than 6 feet, you know, you'd have to figure out a way, and there's no edges on it, which is really weird. But you'd have to figure out a way to kind of paint it from further than 6 feet away, so you could see what you were doing and do it in a way that, anyway.
Yeah.
Telescoping paintbrush.
Yeah, it is absurd. It's absurd to suggest that it's a painting.
Yeah, Father Andrew Dalton, he's an expert on the Shroud, and he said something to the effect of like, scientists have tried to like reproduce this, right, with like a high heat intensity. It's like effectively like a lightning bolt, and anytime you do that to cloth, it burns.
It burns.
Yeah.
It's also 3-dimensionally encoded. I don't know if I told you that, but it's 3-dimensional. There's all these properties that just make it. Everyone should be like, "What is that anyway?" And the fact that they had water poured on it means that the carbon-14 dating it wouldn't work. And the guy that invented carbon-14 dating said it wouldn't work anyway. And the pieces that they tested were on the corners.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Which
that's
was
just
where
a
it
little.
got burned, right? So when that throw off.
Yeah. Well, they just touched it. It's like when you pick something up. When you pick up if you're making your bed, you pick up the corners.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to be touching it, but they threw water on it, which contaminated it. So anyways, so we knew that the Shroud was actually it comes out every like 10 years, right? Or 20 years sometimes. But at this period of time, it had come out within 2 years, twice in 2 years. And so we knew it was out in Turin. And this amazing couple said, "You guys should go and shoot the Shroud of Turin." And we were like, we won't get in, right? Because it was when Francis was going there, and it was the week before Francis was going there. Then it was going away forever. I'm like, there's no way. Security's going to be insane. Everyone wants press passes. There's no way we're going to do it. And I've got to remember the full process of this. Excuse me if I get the timeline a little bit wrong. It was one of the most insane times of my life. So I turned around to Jack. I'm like, Jack. And we'd got like $15,000. And that was to get me, a director, a DP, cameraman, and Jack. Right? So 4 of us to Turin at the last minute, which flights are expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So that would eat up, I mean, just $2,000 each of us. That's $8,000 gone before you even talk about getting...
Just to get there.
Yeah, packing the gear, taking the gear and all that.
Yeah.
Hotels, cars. So anyway, I'm like, we're never going to be able to go. But, you know, I'll tell you what, Jack, why don't you just like contact why don't you just contact the Shroud people, you know, and he's amazing. Like, he's such a smart dude. He's like, I'll figure it out. And anyway, he gets in contact with them, and he's like, there's no way. It's like a week. There's no way. I mean, and then they email us back, and they're like, show us your press credentials. And we were like, we're filmmakers. We're not press. It's dead, right? It's not. In the meantime, that couple went, why don't you guys just go to Rome? Just get to Rome. I don't know why they said it. And I was like, no, I'll go and be a good steward of your money if we can get into the Shroud. I'm not just going to go on a jolly, you know? And so anyway, he gets an email back and he's like, you're not going to believe this. Like, we've got 15 minutes with the Shroud next week. I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember exactly. And I'm like, what? Like, so now we're like, okay, how are we going to get there? Oh, and I called the director and I'm like, Rudy, can you make it? He's like, I can't. I'm editing something. I can't come. I then call the DP and I say, hey, Dave, so the DP's an atheist, Rudy's a Christian. And I said, can you make it? He goes, dude, I can't. I'm working next week. There's no way I can do it. I'm like, oh no. Now, you know, it's Hollywood, so I could get a bunch of people. Those were my guys. Those are the people I wanted to take. Very, very good. And so I'm like, I turn to Jack and I'm like, Jack, listen, the guys can't come. So let's try and get 4 tickets. Let's look at 4 tickets anyway. And we look it up and it was like $2,500 each. And I'm like, well, that's that done then. Like, we can't make it. There's no way.
Here's the 2 of us.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do it. Right, and I'm not a camera operator, so I mean I could have taken my iPhone or whatever, but it wouldn't have given it justice. So, anyways, I'm like, okay, and I'm literally, Jeff, sitting there, and my page refreshes, and the price drops by $1,000.
Oh my!
And I went, Jack, the price has gone down. It's gone down. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm looking at the computer. I said, I'm telling you, it's gone down. And he went, I'm like, refresh. And he refreshed it. And there it was. The price dropped.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, we can go. But we don't have a DP. We don't have a DP. I'm going to call him again. And I call Rudy and he goes, you're not going to believe this. I mean, this wasn't immediate, but, there was a back and forth. And he said, but I'm free next week now. The people decided, I can't remember what happened, but he said, I can come. And I'm like, all right. Mm-hmm. And then I called David, and David goes, you're not going to believe this, but the project I'm working on, they run out of money, so I'm free, but I've got to get back here by, I think it was next Thursday. I'm like, sure. We can do it. We can make it happen. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, Jack, let's book the tickets. And so he goes in and he books 3 of the tickets for that price. And then there was another one that I think they just traveled back later, and that was David. David was the last one, so he traveled back later. I'm like, okay, we're going to fly to Milan. We're going to drive from Milan to Turin. Okay. Then Rudolph calls me up and he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, I know the Countess of Turin.
No big deal. No big deal.
I went, and you just forgot to tell me? He's like, yeah, but they call her the Contessa di Torino, and, she's really awesome, and she was really awesome. And I was like, okay, she's American. And I'm like, okay, because she married into the family.
Wow.
Amazing. And he goes, and she's going to come over because she's in England right now, but she's going to come over and help us, get whatever we need. And I'm like, okay.
Just doors opening up everywhere.
It's just like boom, boom, boom. And so, anyways, we book our hotel.
So many coincidences,
Yeah.
So it gets better. It gets better. So David got a red camera. A red, for those of you who know, it's a type of camera.
It's high quality.
But he needed a Canon lenses to go on it, because not every DP owns his lenses, right? So he needed a lens with a Canon mount on it because it was a Canon red. And so he goes, okay, I'm going to go and get the lenses, and and this is we're pushing up. I think this was Friday night, and we're traveling on Saturday, right? And for the next week, right? I think it was Tuesday. Tuesday. And with the time difference, we'd get in on Sunday, and then we'd drive Sunday night for Monday, do a recce, shoot on Tuesday. I think that's what the process was. I need to go back and
a recce.
A recce, it's to go and see, have a look at
like recon.
Recon. Go and have a look at the location and see what you might need and what you might not need.
Scout
they
it
never called
Scout.
it recce in Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
They don't have recce's.
Scout.
They recce other
no,
people.
not Iraqis. Anyway, so we he says, I've got to go and see about getting these. It was late. Yeah. Everything was done last minute. So I've got a guy that will give us a really good deal on the lenses. It's okay. But he had to get batteries and he had to get memory cards. I'm like, okay. So he calls me that night and he goes, I just realized that we don't have any insurance, and the guy will not give us the gear without insurance. And I'm like, oh no. Rudy, because normally as a production company, you carry your own insurance. So it goes immediately under insurance, and we hadn't got a production company at that point. So I was like, oh no. This is a disaster. Okay, well, we'll go there and we'll rent it in Turin, and they're going to just hammer us for money, right? So we got to do it. It is what it is. We got the flight. I mean, what other option do we have? So not ideal. And he says, okay, well, I'll come and meet you tomorrow at the airport. I'm like, all right. So the next day, and this is important, Rudy's flicking through. He's got this little book. We're on our way to the airport, and he's flicking through his book. And he said, I called the insurance company last night. He goes, but, it's Friday night, Saturday morning. Nobody goes in. They're not going to get back to us. And he's flicking through this book, and I noticed there was a picture of Mary, and then there was a picture of this nun, and he just went past it, right? And he was like, I've been doing all this research, because he had never seen Jack's presentation.
Yeah.
But he's like, I've been doing all this research, and blah, 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 blah. Right, so remember that, right? It's important. And so we carry on driving, and we're on our way to LAX, and we get a call, and it's David, and he goes, you're not going to believe this. The guy just gave me all the gear and said, just get me the insurance when you can.
Wow.
Now, this is like 100 grand's worth of gear, right? It's like all
lenses,
these lenses.
lenses are not cheap.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay then. He goes, I know, it's never happened to me before. It's honestly true. It's honestly true.
Wow.
And I've got 3 other people that can corroborate this, right? And one that's an atheist. So,
Yeah.
you know. And he says, okay, all right, I'll see you at the airport. Then Rudolph gets a call, and it's the insurance company, and they go, we're insured. And I'm like, I've never experienced anything like this in my life.
You must have been gobsmacked.
I was gobsmacked. There was no kerfuffle in it. I was gobsmacked in it.
That was
proper
good.
Yeah. It's a little bit of an inside joke there. So anyway, we get on the plane, we go across, we stop in Milan, drive to Turin, and we get there, and it is the Monday night. And I said, all right, let's go up and go to the press office. Let's see what we got to do. Let's have a look at the basilica and blah 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 outside. See what we're going to film. Okay. And David goes to me, should I take the camera? I was like, no, we got 15 minutes tomorrow. Like, don't lug all that stuff up there. So we walk up the street, and we go in and we start talking to this woman, and I think her name was Paola. And we're talking, and we're like, yeah, we want to film for this and blah blah blah. Da, da, da. And she goes, so do you want to see it? And I went, what? And she goes, I'll take you over if you want to go see it. And I'm like,
Go get the gear.
okay. We didn't have time because it was closing in 5 minutes. Right. And so I'm walking over, and I go, and Jack's like, I can't believe it. He's studied this for years. And I went, Jack, you can't go in. And he gave me a rather sharp answer to that. And I said, no, dude, I can only capture you seeing the shroud for the first time once.
Yeah.
I said, you cannot go in. And he's a professional, right? So he goes, okay.
He knew.
And so he sits outside. And me and Rudy and Dave go in the back entrance. And so the back entrance, you walk in and it's there. Like, it's right there. And I just went, cried.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. I can't tell you what it's like. It's like, this is not a painting.
Yeah.
Right? This is something else. And I just cried. And, Rudolph was we were all overwhelmed. It's just this thing. And we come back out. And it's funny because Jack goes, how was it? I go, that's great. And Dave goes, we have a problem. I'm like, what's that? He goes, the red is not going to shoot in there. It's pitch dark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no. Oh no. And he goes, yeah, I need a Sony A7 that has a high ISO, can capture a lot.
Brighten it up. Yeah.
Brighten it up. And I'm like, it's 6:00 on a Monday night in Turin. Everyone's gone home. Like, there's nothing here. And in the meantime, we're walking up, and I said to Paola, I said, hey, where can I go to eat? And she goes, there's a place up there with blue chairs, right, which is just up from the basilica. And we walk in, and we're so like stoked. We saw the shroud. This is crazy, blah blah blah. And Kelly goes, who's the countess? She goes, you know what? I might be able to get you that camera. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, there's no way, right? I mean, what is she going to do? Yeah. Right, Mrs. At that point,
you keep a Sony A7 in the palace.
And by the way, we needed Canon lenses, right? So not just a Sony A7, we needed it with a Canon mount, right? Else our lenses wouldn't be any good. And so she goes, I'll see what I can do. And she walks off. And I remember because there's these market stalls with a lot of religious stuff in there. And we're like, I can't believe it. And we walk in and we just go straight past the place with the blue chairs. And Kelly comes over and she goes, hey guys, good news. We're getting a camera tonight, midnight. And I went, what? And she goes, yeah, I just made a few calls and I know someone's got one. Canon mount, right? It's Canon mount. She's like, yeah. Yeah, it's a Canon mount. And I'm like, okay. I mean, you'd be really hard pushed to find this in LA at that time.
Yeah.
Everyone goes home. She got in contact with that person and they said, yes, the guy's going to deliver. He has to go to his He's got a warehouse outside of Turin. He's going to go get it and bring it back to us. And at this point, it was rush hour or whatever, dinner time. It's going to take time. We're like, okay. So in the meantime, we'd walked up past the blue chairs, right? And I went, oh, darn it. Like, and we hadn't eaten, right? Because we drove there, got off, went down. And I went, oh, darn it. We've missed the place with the blue chairs. And my buddy goes, there's another place with blue chairs right there. Let's go there. So we sit down, and this guy comes over and he goes, good evening, gentlemen. And I'm like, I said, your English is very good. And he goes, oh, thank you. I'm married to an English woman. I was like, really? Where's she from? And he goes, oh, you won't know. I was like, try me. And she goes, oh, it's from this little place called Warsaw. I'm like, my hometown.
You may have seen me flip the lights on.
You might have seen me flip the lights on.
For Christmas.
And so, I mean, she knew exactly who I was, right?
Yeah.
Because, which was really weird. I called her and I was like, hey, I'm like, what are the chances? Anyway, so it gets better. So all that happens, and we wait up, and it's midnight, and this guy comes and he brings his Sony A7 camera, and he goes, okay, here it is, with the Canon mount, and he's speaking in Italian, and he goes, okay, pick it up tomorrow night, and leaves. No paperwork, didn't sign anything, just leaves. And as he's gone, my buddy goes, oh, no. We need something called a Shogun attachment to it, which allows you to film for a long time. I'm like, dude, like, I can't, So he goes, all right, well, let's try it. And so Kelly picks up the phone and she calls and she goes, okay, all right. He's going to bring it back at 2:00. And I went, I'm going to bed, right? I'm going to bed. So I go off to bed. And Rudolph, actually, was the director, got up and got the Shogun for it the next day. So anyways, we turn up the next day and we go, listen, we got 15 minutes, right? Make it good, right? Let's have a plan. And I'm like, but it's dark, so how are we going to, shoot Jack? And I'm like, let's just put an iPod under it, and an iPad under him. Let's just, light it, kind of Jimmy the...
white screen on an
just
iPad.
a white screen,
it'll just,
make him light up. And they're like, okay. We spent 3.5 hours in front of the Shroud.
Just give me a break.
I actually fell asleep in front of the Shroud because my wife was trying to call me. I didn't realize, because whenever I go away, there's always a family emergency, like someone goes sick, gets sick, and my wife, I think it was my wife, got sick at that point. But I was in front of the Shroud for 3.5 hours, and it was unbelievable. We actually shot so much footage of it that we were like, there's nothing more we can do. We shot Jack walking in. We let him talk a little bit. Nobody's allowed to talk. We shot the Shroud. We moved back. We shot it from... I mean, we got every angle of it. It was unbelievable. And we left and we were like, I don't understand what's happened. And Kelly said, listen, guys, my mother-in-law, who is the real countess, she's the royalty, she has only ever spent 15 minutes in front of the Shroud.
Oh, my goodness.
She goes, I don't know what's going on. We get carte blanche to go into the Shroud Museum. And here's a little bit of, I don't know if you know this, whether you were told this by your Shroud expert, but we shot everything in the Shroud Museum, and the Shroud Museum is right next to the original place where they brought the Shroud. So it's next to a basilica. And we're talking to the guy interviewing him, and he said, did you know that behind the bulletproof glass, there is argon, but with a little bit of oxygen? And do you know what the oxygen's for? I'm like, what? The Shroud has microscopic bacteria on the surface of it that protects it.
What?
Yep. So they have to put a little bit of oxygen.
It needs the oxygen.
So they don't die. And I was like, so you're telling me the Shroud has a force field? Which is basically what it is. And think over all those years, babies were snotty babies were putting up, because the Savoys had it, and they just draped it over the side of their balconies, and people would touch it because it had healing qualities.
Yeah.
So, we came out and we were like, that was weird. we then go out that night and we're all a little bit shell-shocked. Oh, sorry, let me go back a bit. I said, listen, I want to have a shot, like nice up and high, showing Jack walk across it's like a big square outside the basilica. And if we can get high and shoot down, that would be a really good shot. Because there was nobody there. And they were like, okay, so there's a building. And we just walked into the building, went right to the top of the building, set it up. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, nobody stopped us, got on the roof. So we set the shot, and Jack was walking across. And all of a sudden, this guy goes, and it's Italian, so the arms go, it's like this. And,
very animated.
Lobster claws.
And what are you doing?
Hey, what are you doing? I would say, like, you strap their arms down to their sides, they can't talk. But we go down. He was the chief of police. And so as we're going down, Rudolph goes, get the memory cards out. Like, because they're going to seize the gear. They don't know what the memory card looks like. So we swapped the memory cards out. And the guy was there with a whole bunch of cops. And we're like, we're going to jail. Like, we are going to jail.
Yeah.
And he's like, better. And we're like, look, we're just filming. Because obviously it's a security threat. We didn't think about that because the Pope was coming. But security threat, they were probably like, what are these guys doing staking out the area?
Yeah.
And anyway, he was really mad. I can still see his face to this day. And he let us off. And Kelly said, you don't understand, like, you get shut down for looking the wrong way in Italy if you're filming, right? And you got access to everything. We shot everywhere. The guy let us walk. And so that night, then later on in that day, the count comes in. And this was a kind of a weird experience, right? So Rudolph says, I'm going to go and explore. And the count who came in, he was like the CEO of the group that owns Fiat, which is Ferrari. Mm-hmm. He they own Juventus, the soccer club. So he's a big guy, and he goes, "I've got to take you for the best ice cream in Italy." So we go to this gelato place, and he does get us this amazing ice cream, which is a Nutella. And so we're eating it, and Rudolph comes up to us, and he's shaking like this, right? He's like physically shaking, and he goes, "Guys, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Like something happened to me. I went to see this picture and like I had this like a bolt of lightning that went through me. And it's like, and he's South African. He's the most like logical, like guy. And me and Jack are like, the ice creams went and we ran to where he said, and it was a museum and it was closing, but they again let us in. And we go, hey, there's a guy here who goes, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And we go in and we see this picture, and it was on loan from another city. And it was like some art aficionado on this will tell me what it is, but it was like almost the first use of a speech bubble, right? Like kind of like, So it's Christ after he's been brought down from, I believe it's after he's been brought down from the cross, and it's actually these saints that are carrying him. And there's like a speech bubble out. And me and Jack are standing there and we were like, we're waiting.
Yeah.
Nope, not feeling anything weird. And Jack stops me and he goes, do you know where we are? I was like, no. Because don't forget, we've had no sleep. We've been running around. And he goes, we are directly under the shroud. Directly under it. And we'd gone into a art gallery that went down, and we didn't know because we came from the other angle. We didn't know the area that was underneath the shroud, like directly underneath the shroud. So something happened to Rudy that day.
Shut up.
Anyway, so there's another couple of things that I could tell you about, but I won't, including Jack being offered an original Segundo Pia, like just being given it, and he didn't get it in the end. Segundo Pia was the guy that took the picture of the shroud. Anyway, that was the whole other thing. But so this is the main thing, right? So we've been offered this Segundo Pia. There's a whole bunch of shenanigans that went on that meant that we couldn't get it. And so me and Jack, who have an amazing relationship, he's one of my closest friends, I said, Jack, I'm not waiting for the Segundo Pia, right? Because we were waiting for it to turn up. I said, it's never going to turn up. They're not going to let us have this. We need to leave. Like, God has blessed us with so much on this trip. Let's not be greedy. And he was like, Matt, I want the cigar to appear. And I get it, right? I get it's a photo negative of Jesus. And I said, Jack, I'm making an executive decision. We're leaving. Right, we've got to drive to Milan. And for the first time, and he's never been like this since, and wasn't before, he was mad at me. And so we get in this Sprinter van, and I type into my phone, Milan, right? Because it's a fair drive. And I'm like, we'll stop off anyway, then I'll put in the hotel. I just want to leave. So we go along the river, and we're 40 minutes out, and my phone starts going crazy. And I'm on a roundabout. Right, I'm on an island. I'm going around like this. I'm like, guys, because I was in this big truck, and all these like little Italian like, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill an Italian. This is like Super Mario, and I don't have the cool cart. I need to get off. And so, and I go, Jack, you got to help me, man. Like, which way do we go? And my phone is spinning. It's doing all weird stuff. And he comes in and he goes, Milan, boom, and his phone goes, at the next turn left. And I'm like, right, I'm off. And my phone goes, at the next turn right. And I'm like, what is going on? And I keep driving, and it goes, go straight, or whatever it is. And then it goes, go left, go right, go left. And mine's saying the exact opposite. And I'm like, what is going on? It's Milan. Like, we're not in somewhere going around a one-way system.
Right.
Yeah. Right? It's a city, and we'd already traveled 40 minutes out, right? And I'm driving, and, it's kind of like a weird kind of vibe in the car, right?
Yeah.
We're all like, kind of like, what has gone on over the last, 72 hours? Crazy. And I look around, I'm like, I know this street. And they're like, don't be silly. I said, no, I know this street. I know this is Kelly, the Countess. I said, this is the street their hotel was on. And they went, that's impossible. We're out, and then pull up right outside the basilica. And my phone and his phone just went whew, straight up. That is, and if anyone else had told me, they both locked in and they had the same directions.
Instead of being opposite, they came back to the same place for the first time.
Goodness.
And we just pulled up right outside the basilica, and our phones went, and we just looked at each other and we just laughed. And I'm like, all right, that's it. That's God telling us like to knock it off and get on with it. And so we drove back to Milan, and I'll never forget it. We listened to like The Cure, and we listened to a bunch of 80s music the whole way, singing the whole way. It was a great vibe. And we went out for a beer that night. And I remember David saying to me, he said, I don't understand what I've witnessed. Like, I don't understand it. I need time to process this. Like, because it was a supernatural thing.
Yeah.
So we get back to LA, and Jack's got one more day, and I'm like, Jack, this community in Pasadena, and you can ask anyone who's out there in the Pasadena St. Therese community, we said, would you like to go and do a presentation of the Shroud? Your Shroud presentation. He goes, okay. So we went out and we bought a bunch of wine, and we got people in and everything. And so I call Rudolph, and I go, Rudolph, this is really weird because you've seen the Shroud, but you've never seen the Shroud presentation. Do you want to come and watch it? And he goes, yeah. And he said, where is it? I said, it's St. Therese Church, Alhambra. And there's like a beat. And he goes, you mean St. Teresa? And I was like, no, I mean St. Therese. And he laughs on the other end of the phone. And he goes, okay, I'll be there. I'm like, okay. So Jack does the whole presentation, and he goes, yeah, and Rudolph's there, and, this crazy stuff happened to us. And everyone says, what happened? And don't forget, this had just happened to us. Like, we were right there. We were fresh.
Yeah.
And so we run through it, and it takes about an hour to tell all the different details. And Rudolph goes, I have one more thing. And he picks up the book, the black book.
that he was flipping through.
And he goes, see this? And he opens it, and it's St. Therese of Lisieux was the nun.
Yeah.
Oh, the picture of the
Yeah.
nun.
And And he went, and he said it to the whole group. So there was like 30, 40 people in there that can corroborate this. This is not a lie. It's all this is absolute fact. And everyone was like, whoa. I was like, I have no explanation for it. And so that was our experience. And I've never experienced anything like it since. And if you were to tell me before I went on that trip that, you know, I'm very much a logic and reason. Like I said, I'm an Aquinas guy. You know, I want to, you know, it's a philosophy, logic. And I just, to this day, I know I experienced something supernatural that I have no explanation. And I have multiple witnesses for it. And I've never experienced anything like it since.
What happened with the footage? What is there a project?
We've got
in
it.
the way?
We've got it. And it's one of those things, man. It's just sitting there. And I've seen all these other things coming out, right? Like the Shroud is this. And I said, you know, I can 3D print that. We can 3D print Jesus. Like, here's an interesting thing about it. Did they say, did your last guest talk about the pigtail in his hair, the way that Jesus' hair is? Because they called him the victim. Did he talk to you about this?
No, I don't.
So, just to segue a little bit, the hair at the back, so is like this. He's got like a braided piece of hair that goes into the back and then goes down like that, and you can really see it. You can really see it. But up until that point, this is what Jack told me, was if you go to the Sistine Chapel, Jesus is clean shaven and looks almost feminine, right? Because that's the art style, until they rediscovered the Shroud. And they saw the beard. He's also about 5'10", stocky, like jacked, like he would have been really strong. And I don't know if they told
like a Matt Marsden type.
That's what they call him.
Is that what you call it? Yeah, I'll take it. But anyway, I mean, so we have all the footage of it. Every single person I tell about the Shroud is blown away about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it what's amazing is how so many people are touched by it and how they retain the facts. But we have the footage. We have the most high definition footage of the Shroud of Turin on the planet. And it's just sitting there. I'd love to get it out to the world. But, you know, again, like I said, Catholics don't normally fund these things. They'll say, can you do it for like, you know, $50 and a stick of chewing gum? I'm like, I don't know. I think Jesus is worth a little bit more than that, don't you? I mean, in an ideal world, what I'd like to do is animate it, you know, do a proper animation, show where all the marks are, because you can see them really clearly.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Did they tell you about the Crown of Thorns as well? Did he tell you about that?
I don't know. I've watched him on he was also on Pints with Aquinas for 3 hours.
I think he does, but
yeah.
Did he tell you about how the blood goes through the cloth?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's.
But
I mean,
maybe not on our podcast.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So basically, you know, a lot of people when they see Jesus, they're like, "Oh, there's Jesus on the cross, and he's got this like kind of dainty, like crown." Well, what it was actually just more like a helmet that they pushed down onto his head and got a piece of cloth and pulled it tight. And the reason why we know there's cloth in it is because the rivulets of blood like go down like this, and you can see it on the shroud, and it comes out like that. If you have a look at the picture, you'll see a little bit come out like that. Yeah. So they know that it was pulled on like that, but it was like an inch long spikes. I mean, it was. Yeah. It is incredible. But anyway, that was my story.
My goodness,
it's kind of crazy.
I also just think that it's incredible that yesterday was the feast of St. Therese of Lisieux as of time of recording.
Oh, so, there you go.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's just nice little button on all that. That's incredible.
I wish you were a better storyteller.
I should do it for a living, shouldn't I?
My jaw was just like,
maybe go to acting school as a child or something and get something going here.
No, well, that was God's story, right? I mean, it's kind of easy when you've got a backdrop like that. That's right. Those things happening. So
my goodness.
Again,
like sorry.
No, I'm just saying I've never experienced anything like it. I keep reiterating it. We got every single thing that we wanted to. Everything, all the doors opened.
Yeah.
And it's unexplainable. And at some point, you know, I'd like to go back and interview the guys that I went with.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly left a mark on Rudolph.
Yeah, there's like the human piece of what other people experience coming from their backgrounds and their lens.
Right.
Yeah, because they might look at me and say, oh, he's a Catholic guy, and Jack is the guy like who actually did all the research on it. So you guys have got a vested interest. These two guys don't at all.
Yeah.
So
it's like you were just seeing what you wanted to see.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's the way people are gonna.
Yeah. And I understand that. That's why I don't, unless someone asks me like you do, Jeff, I don't really tell people about it because
Sure.
it just sounds so fantastical.
It's a series of fortunate events.
Very fortunate.
When you know you've experienced something that is of that order, you're always going to be in that weird dance between, if you tell people, you know what you're saying is hard to believe, but you also know it's true. So you also want to share it because it's life-changing. And so it is interesting.
You got to hear this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also that conflict that what I really want people to focus on is the shroud. I don't want them to focus on me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what it did help me do. We watched a musical the other day that I think was absolutely superb.
I pulled him aside and I was like, oh man, this is phenomenal.
But it made me understand that story more.
I agree completely.
So this
is the Bernadette musical in France. That's a smash hit in France. That's being rescored and rewritten for an American musical audience, which means none of the dialogue changes because it's the dialogue straight from Bernadette. Like it's the known factual dialogue.
Based,
but all of the songs are written in a way that the American audience connects with it differently. And the one song they release, and you can get it on Spotify right now, oh my gosh.
It's phenomenal. It's one of I complain a lot about Christian art because
Quality
it's so bad.
Yeah.
But this is from top to finish. It is exceptional. It actually. I haven't told Pierre this. I did tell Rob. It changed me. It was one of those things where I watched it and I'm like, oh man, do I pray enough?
Yeah.
Like, am I really living the faith?
And she prays so much in that. I can't wait for that to be a live musical.
It's great. It's really great.
Oh, my goodness. All right, Marsden. Well, my life's work is complete.
Feels that way, doesn't
we can
it?
shut down shop. You got Matt to respond to that email.
Yep.
Show up and talk to us.
That's right.
He's like, break it all down, guys. It's over now.
This has been our final episode. Until the next one.
And all of you getting a discount at Lucid, it's over. Shell game. You've blessed us, but I know that your blessing is really just
awesome.
God working through you. So keep it up, my good man. We're so grateful to have you here locally. Everybody, I can't wait till we post this episode in the Shroud for you to be able to take in on the internet. Sorry, that's a bad joke. Is that funny? Shroud?
Oh.
The cloud?
Upload it to the Shroud? Is that what you
missed?
Yeah, I missed it too when I said it.
We'll stretch.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yep. Matt, thank you for blessing us. For the rest of you, we will.
See you in the Eucharist.
God bless you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to join us at our undersized table, subscribe to the video version of the show on YouTube by typing @ that's the symbol @, so shift and 2 on your keyboard, @ the _ BeatiDudes on YouTube. We'll see you there.